Isabella Martinez, that's my name. I never knew my dad, but honestly, I didn't feel like I was missing out on much. Mom worked her ass off to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. From as early as I can remember, I was helping around the house. Dishes, laundry, you name it. Mom always said, "Bella, you gotta learn to take care of yourself. The world ain't gonna do it for you." Those words stuck with me. Our apartment was small, but it was home. The sound of Mom's ancient sewing machine was the soundtrack to my childhood. She'd stay up late, mending clothes for extra cash. I'd often fall asleep to its rhythmic hum. What did I like? Computers. It started when our school got a bunch of donated PCs. Most kids used them for games, but I was fascinated by what made them tick. I'd stay after school, tinkering, learning. One day, Mr. Johnson, the IT teacher, caught me trying to install some video editing software. "What are you up to, Isabella?" he asked, eyebrow raised. I froze, thinking I was in trouble. I just wanted to learn how to edit videos. Instead of getting mad, he smiled. "Well, why didn't you say so? Let me show you a few tricks." From then on, every Tuesday and Thursday after school, Mr. Johnson would teach me the ins and outs of video editing. At home, I'd practice on our old, wheezing computer. As high school graduation approached, reality hit hard. College wasn't in the cards for me. The day after graduation, I marched into WKLP, our local TV station. The receptionist looked at me like I was crazy when I asked about job openings, but pointed me towards the HR office. 3 interviews and 1 practical test later, I had my first real job. Assistant video editor. The pay wasn't great, but it was a start. For the next 2 years, I worked my ass off. Weekdays at the station, weekends doing freelance gigs. Every penny I could spare went into my college fund. It was exhausting, but I was determined. Then, on a rare night out with Lisa and Carlos, everything changed. We were at this house party, some friend of a friend thing. That's where I met him, Ryan Thompson. He wasn't what you'd call classically handsome. Kinda nerdy, with thick-rimmed glasses and a slightly crooked smile. But when he started talking about his work in software development, his whole face lit up. I was intrigued. As the party wound down, Ryan asked for my number. I hesitated for a second, then thought, what the hell, and gave it to him. The next few months were like a whirlwind. Ryan and I started dating, and it was nice. Different from what I expected, but in a good way. One night, as we were walking home from a movie, Ryan proposed to me, and I agreed. The wedding was small but beautiful. My mom cried happy tears, and Ryan's parents, Linda and Robert, well, they surprised me. I'd been nervous about meeting them, given the whole wealthy family thing. But they were warm and welcoming from the start. The first 2 years of our marriage were good. Not perfect, but good. We had our own place, a cozy apartment not far from the TV station where I still worked. Ryan had his job at some big tech firm, and things were comfortable. We traveled a bit, mostly weekend trips around the country. It was more than I'd ever done growing up, and I loved every minute of it. Seeing new places, trying new foods, it was like a whole new world had opened up to me. But then, things started to change. It started with the little things. Ryan would sigh when I talked about work, or roll his eyes when I got excited about a new editing technique I'd learned. Then more. The first time he made an excuse not to take me to a work party, I didn't think much of it. "It's just a boring office thing," he said. "You wouldn't enjoy it." But then it happened again and again. One night, I overheard him on the phone with a coworker. "Yeah, just me tonight. You know how it is. Bella's not really into these kinds of events." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Not into these events? He'd never even given me a chance. That night, I confronted him. "Ryan, why don't you want me to come to your work events anymore?" "So you're ashamed of me?" "No, it's not that. It's just, sometimes it's hard for you to keep up with the conversations, you know? I don't want you to feel out of place. His words stung, but a part of me wondered if he was right. Maybe I did need to step up my game. So, I made a decision. I was going to go back to school. I enrolled in night classes at the local community college, studying information technology. It was tough, balancing work and school and my marriage, but I was determined to make it work. But even as I worked my ass off to improve myself, things with Ryan kept getting worse. The cold shoulder turned into open contempt. The man I married seemed to be disappearing before my eyes, replaced by someone I barely recognized. And then came the night that changed everything. I'd just gotten home from a late class, exhausted but feeling good about acing a test. Ryan was in the living room, a glass of whiskey in his hand. "Where have you been?" he demanded. "Class, remember? I told you I had a big test tonight." He scoffed. "You're a fool and a hillbilly, Bella. And no amount of schooling is going to change that." I felt like I'd been slapped. But before I could respond, I heard a gasp from the doorway. Linda and Robert was standing there, a look of horror on their faces. Linda leaned forward, her eyes flashing. "How dare you talk to your wife like that? Ryan, we raised you better than this." "You don't understand," Ryan said, his voice rising. "Do you know how embarrassing it is to have a wife who can't even keep up with basic conversations at work events?" I flinched, but Robert's next words shocked us all into silence. "Embarrassing?" he thundered. "Let me tell you about embarrassing, boy. Your grandfather, my father, didn't have a lick of formal education. He was born in the poorest part of town, worked his fingers to the bone to give me a better life. So don't you dare sit there and act like you're some kind of aristocrat." I felt a rush of warmth towards my in-laws, but Ryan's next words froze it in its tracks. "I'll behave how I see fit," he spat. "This is my life, my marriage." After his parents left, Ryan started going away more often. "Weekend trips with friends," he'd say, not even bothering to invite me anymore. I threw myself into work and school, taking on extra weekend gigs to fill the lonely hours. Then, my mom got sick. Cancer, the doctors said. It was aggressive, and within months, she was gone. I felt lost, adrift without my anchor. Ryan was barely there, offering awkward pats on the back instead of the comfort I craved. In my grief, I found myself turning to Linda more and more. She'd call to check on me, invite me over for tea, just sit and talk with me for hours. It was the motherly comfort I desperately needed. But this only seemed to infuriate Ryan more. One night, after I'd spent the afternoon at his parents' house, he exploded. "Why are you always over there?" he yelled. "Are you trying to turn my parents against me?" I was stunned. "What? No, Ryan. I needed someone to talk to." I went to bed that night with tears in my eyes, wondering how things had gone so wrong. A few weeks later, I started feeling off. Exhausted all the time, nauseous in the mornings. At first, I chalked it up to stress and grief. But as the symptoms persisted, a different possibility started to form in my mind. I bought a pregnancy test on my way home from work one day, my heart pounding as I waited for the results. When those two lines appeared, I felt a mix of joy and terror. A baby. We were having a baby. That night, I waited nervously for Ryan to come home. When he finally walked through the door, I took a deep breath. "Ryan, we need to talk. I'm pregnant." The look on his face wasn't joy, or even surprise. It was pure fury. "Pregnant?" he spat. "Are you kidding me? We can't have a baby now. Get an abortion, Bella. That's final." I fled the apartment, tears streaming down my face. Without thinking, I found myself at Linda and Robert's doorstep. When Linda opened the door and saw my face, she immediately pulled me into a hug. Through my sobs, I told them everything. About the pregnancy, about Ryan's reaction. I've never seen Robert look so angry, or Linda so determined. You listen to me, Isabella, Linda said, holding my face in her hands. This is your decision. If you want this baby, we'll support you every step of the way. Ryan be damned. The next few months were a blur of doctor's appointments, work, and growing tension at home. Ryan barely spoke to me, spending most of his time out with friends. I focused on my job, squirreling away every extra penny I could for the baby. One afternoon, I had a doctor's appointment to get some routine tests done. I'd taken half a day off work and was looking forward to a quiet evening at home afterward. As I pulled into our apartment complex, I noticed Ryan's car in the parking lot. Strange, he was usually at work at this hour. I climbed the stairs to our apartment, fumbling with my keys. As I opened the door, I heard Ryan's voice. I'll be there in a minute, babe. Just grabbing my overnight bag. My heart started racing. I stepped inside, and there was Ryan, packing a suitcase. Who were you talking to? Where are you going? Before he could answer, I heard a car horn honk outside. Ryan cursed under his breath and grabbed his bag. I don't have time for this. We'll talk when I get back. I followed him down to the parking lot, demanding answers. And that's when I saw her. Sitting in the passenger seat of Ryan's car was a woman. She was beautiful, with long blonde hair and perfect makeup. And she was very, very pregnant. As I stood there, frozen in shock, she got out of the car. She walked towards me with a smug smile on her face. So, you must be Isabella, she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. I'm Melissa, Ryan's girlfriend. I turned to Ryan, who couldn't even meet my eyes. Is this true? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, still not looking at me. I felt a surge of anger and disgust. Aren't you ashamed? I asked Melissa, my voice shaking. He's married. We're having a baby too. Melissa's smile turned cold. Ashamed? No, honey, I had to fight for my happiness, and you've already lost this battle. It's not my fault you couldn't keep your man satisfied. I turned to Ryan, fury replacing my shock. How could you do this? To me, to our baby? He finally looked at me, his face a mask of indifference. Come on, Bella, we both know this marriage was a mistake. I never loved you. You were convenient. A good housekeeper, someone to keep the bed warm. But Melissa, she's my soulmate. She's smart, educated. She fits into my world. Each word was like a knife in my heart. I stood there, tears streaming down my face, as Ryan got into the car with Melissa. I'll be back on Monday to get the rest of my things, he said. We can talk about the divorce then. As they drove away, I sank to my knees in the parking lot, my world crumbling around me. I picked up my phone with shaking hands and dialed Linda's number. When they arrived at my apartment that night, Linda took one look at my tear-stained face and pulled me into a fierce hug. I listened, numb, as Robert berated Ryan over the speakerphone. His words were sharp, cutting. How dare you treat your wife this way, he thundered. The woman carrying your child. Ryan's voice came through, defensive and cold. Dad, you don't understand. Melissa is. Don't you dare mention that woman's name. Linda cut in. We will never accept her, do you hear me? Never. There was a pause, then Ryan's voice, eerily calm. Fine, I don't need your acceptance. I don't need you at all, I have Melissa now, and that's all I need. The next few months were a whirlwind. With Linda and Robert's help, I found a small apartment closer to them. The divorce proceedings were ugly, with Ryan fighting me every step of the way. But in the end, it was done. I was free of him, at least legally. When my daughter, Sophia, was born on a crisp autumn morning, it was Linda who held my hand through the labor. Robert paced the waiting room, every bit the nervous grandfather. Ryan refused to even see Sophia. When I took him to court for child support, he had the audacity to demand a paternity test. I agreed, knowing the truth. The results came back, confirming what I already knew, Sophia was his. The court ordered him to pay alimony, but I knew better than to count on his support. The years that followed were challenging, but also filled with unexpected joy. I threw myself into my studies, finally earning my degree in information technology. At work, my dedication paid off with a promotion to senior editor. But the real blessings were Linda and Robert. They embraced their role as grandparents with a fervor that sometimes brought tears to my eyes. Weekends were filled with trips to the park, family dinners, and impromptu movie nights. They were the family I'd always dreamed of, and Sophia adored them. 5 years flew by in a blur of bedtime stories, scraped knees, and proud moments. Sophia was growing into a smart, kind little girl, with her grandmother's smile and her grandfather's curiosity. Then, one ordinary Tuesday, everything changed again. Robert collapsed at home. The diagnosis was grim: advanced pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave him months, maybe weeks. I threw myself into helping Linda care for him. Work, Sophia, my own needs, everything took a back seat. Robert had been more of a father to me than my own had ever been, and I was determined to be there for him until the end. Despite our best efforts, despite the treatments and the prayers, Robert slipped away from us 3 months later. I held Linda as she wept, feeling as though I'd lost my own father. At the funeral, I stood between Linda and Sophia, our hands linked. Ryan didn't show up. I hadn't really expected him to, but his absence was a stark reminder of how far he'd fallen. As the weeks passed, Linda's health began to decline rapidly. The loss of Robert seemed to have drained her will to live. She became frail, often confused, and prone to long bouts of silence. The solution came to me that night as I lay awake, worrying. The next morning, I called my boss and arranged to work remotely. Then I packed up Sophia and our essentials and moved into Linda's house. Our new routine took some adjusting. I hired a nurse to care for Linda during the mornings while I worked on my video editing projects. In the afternoons, Sophia and I would take over. We'd read to Linda, help her with her physical therapy exercises, or simply sit and reminisce about happier times. Weeks turned into months. Linda had good days and bad days. On the good days, we'd sit in the garden, enjoying the sunshine and each other's company. On the bad days, I'd hold her hand as she cried for Robert, for the son she'd lost long before his father's death. One sunny afternoon, Sophia and I returned from a walk to find a man in a crisp business suit leaving the house. My heart raced, fearing the worst. "Linda?" I called out as we entered. "Is everything okay?" She was sitting in her favorite armchair, looking tired but composed. "Everything's fine, dear. That was just Mr. Harrison, my lawyer. I needed to discuss some legal matters with him." I nodded, not pressing for details. If Linda wanted to share, she would. "All right, how about some tea?" 3 weeks later, Linda passed away in her sleep. With shaking hands, I dialed Ryan's number. When he answered, I struggled to keep my voice steady. "Ryan, it's Isabella. Your mother passed away this morning." There was a long pause, then Ryan's voice, cold and detached. "Well, I can't say I'm surprised or particularly upset. That woman made her choices. Look, I'm not coming to the funeral. Just let me know when the will reading is scheduled." On the day of the funeral, the church was packed. Linda had touched so many lives, and it showed. As I stood at the pulpit to deliver the eulogy, with Sophia holding my hand, I looked out at the sea of faces. Friends, neighbors, colleagues, all there to say goodbye to a woman who had loved so fiercely and been loved in return. Ryan's absence was a palpable void, a reminder of the tragedy that had torn this family apart. But as I began to speak, sharing memories of Linda's kindness, her strength, her unwavering love, I realized something profound. Family isn't always about blood. Sometimes, it's about choice. And Linda had chosen to love me, to love Sophia, even when her own son had turned his back on us all. As we laid Linda to rest beside Robert, I made a silent promise. I would honor her memory by living with the same love and grace she had shown me. And I would make sure Sophia grew up knowing the incredible grandparents she had been blessed with, even if their time together had been all too brief. A few days after we laid Linda to rest, I received a call from Mr. Harrison, Linda's lawyer. "Mrs. Thompson, it's time to read the will. Can you come to my office tomorrow at 10 a.m.? I've already contacted Mr. Thompson. He'll be there." The next morning, I arrived at the law office, my stomach in knots. I took a deep breath and walked in. Ryan was there with Melissa, both dressed expensively and wearing matching scowls. Melissa's eyes raked over me, her lip curling in disdain. "Let's begin," Mr. Harrison said, opening a folder. As he read, I watched Ryan's face. At first, he looked bored, then confused, and finally, as realization dawned, furious. "This can't be right," he interrupted. "Read it again." Mr. Harrison sighed. "Mr. Thompson, it's quite clear. Your mother has left all her property, including the house, to Isabella Thompson and her daughter, Sophia." Ryan rounded on me. "You," he snarled. "You manipulated my mother, you gold-digging scum. Well, enjoy it while you can. I'm kicking you out of that house today." As they stormed out, Melissa paused at the door. "You might have won this round," she hissed, "but trust me, we're not done." I sat there, shell-shocked, as Mr. Harrison explained the details of the will. It wasn't just the house. Linda had left everything to Sophia and me, her savings, her investments, everything. "She wanted to ensure you and Sophia would be taken care of," Mr. Harrison said gently. "Linda loved you both very much." Tears welled up in my eyes. Even after she was gone, Linda was still looking out for us. But Ryan was true to his word. The harassment started that very night, incessant phone calls, threats, promises to destroy me. I changed my number, but it didn't stop. Then came the intimidation. Men would approach us on the street, making vague threats about paying what we owed. Sophia was terrified, clinging to me whenever we left the house. One day, as a man was making his usual threats, I discreetly hit record on my phone. As soon as he left, I went straight to the police station. The investigation moved quickly. With my recording and testimony, along with statements from neighbors who had witnessed the harassment, the police built a solid case against Ryan. When confronted with the evidence, Ryan's hired thugs quickly turned on him, confirming he had paid them to scare us. I'll never forget the look on Ryan's face when the officer slapped the handcuffs on him. In the end, I was granted a restraining order against Ryan. He wasn't allowed within 500 feet of Sophia or me, or to contact us in any way. That night, as I tucked Sophia into bed, I looked around the room that had once been Linda's sewing room. Now it was filled with stuffed animals and children's books, a testament to the new life we were building. "Grandma and Grandpa are watching over us," Sophia mumbled sleepily, clutching the teddy bear Robert had given her on her 3rd birthday. "Yes, they are," I whispered, kissing her forehead. "And they'd be so proud of you, my brave girl." Life had finally settled into a peaceful rhythm. Sophia was thriving in school, and I had recently been promoted to deputy director at the TV station. Linda and Robert's legacy had given us security, but I was determined to build our own success. One sunny afternoon, as I left work, a familiar figure stepped out from behind a parked car. Melissa, Ryan's wife, looked nothing like the polished woman I remembered. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes red-rimmed. "Isabella, please," she said, her voice breaking. "I need your help." I tensed, ready for another confrontation, but her next words caught me off guard. "Our son is sick. He needs surgery. Please, we need money. Just half of the inheritance." "You don't need it all, do you?" Something felt off. "What's wrong with him?" I asked cautiously. Melissa's eyes darted around. It's his heart. No, his kidneys. The doctors say." As she fumbled through her explanation, I remembered our first encounter, her smug smile as she declared victory in our battle. A cold clarity washed over me. "You know, Melissa," I said calmly, "someone once told me that I had to fight for my happiness. And it looks like you've already lost this battle." Her face transformed, the mask of desperation replaced by fury. You scum, she spat. You owe us that money. It should have been ours. I stood my ground. I don't owe you anything. Now leave, or I'm calling the police. As I walked away, her curses fading behind me, I felt a sense of closure. The last tie to my old life had been severed. That night, I made a decision. It was time for a fresh start. I sold Linda's house and bought a new one in a different neighborhood. Somewhere Ryan and Melissa wouldn't find us. Now, as I sit in our new living room, watching Sophia do her homework, I'm filled with gratitude. Gratitude for Linda and Robert, who loved us unconditionally. Gratitude for the strength I found within myself. And yes, even gratitude for the hardships that led me here.
The sound of their laughter cuts through the elegant hotel lobby like shattered glass. I stand frozen behind a marble pillar, my designer handbag suddenly feeling like a lead weight against my arm. My husband's voice rises above the others, carried on a wave of conspiratorial mirth. Mom's right. It's better this way. Brielle would just make everything complicated. I press my palm against the cool marble, steadying myself. My name is Brielle, and I've just discovered I'm not invited to my own family's vacation. The vacation I'm paying for. The Louis Vuitton suitcase I'd packed sits abandoned in my car, filled with carefully chosen outfits and thoughtful gifts for everyone, including my nephew Nate's favorite comic books. What a fool I've been. She's always trying so hard. Lindsay, my sister-in-law, chimes in. It's exhausting watching her attempt to fit in. My mother-in-law Marilyn's response is swift and cutting. Well, dear, new money always shows. Though I must say, her generosity has its uses. They laugh again, the sound echoing off the vaulted ceiling. I watch them through the reflecting pool of the fountain, their images rippling and distorting. Ryan, my husband of 3 years, stands slightly apart from the group, hands in his pockets. He doesn't defend me. He never does. Did you tell her you had a work emergency? Marilyn asks. Yeah, Ryan replies, scratching the back of his neck. His tell when he's lying. She bought it. Said she'd wire the money for the rooms today. My fingers move to my phone, muscle memory already pulling up the banking app. Then I stop. The realization hits me like a physical blow. I've been doing this for years, supporting them, funding their lifestyle, desperately trying to buy my way into a family that sees me as nothing more than an ATM with an unfortunate personality. Excuse me, madam? A hotel staff member approaches me. Can I help you with anything? I straighten up, forcing a smile. Yes, actually. I need to speak with your manager about some reservation changes. The staff member nods, gesturing toward the front desk. As I walk past my husband and his family, none of them notice me. They're too busy planning their week of luxury on my dime. At the desk, I meet the manager's eyes. The Carter party reservations? I need to make some adjustments. Of course, Mrs. Carter. What can I do for you? I'd like to move my reservation to the presidential suite. I pause, letting the weight of my next words settle. And I need to cancel the other rooms immediately. The manager's fingers hover over the keyboard. All 5 rooms? Yes. And please ensure my name is flagged as the only authorized payment source for any charges to those rooms. As I complete the changes, I hear Marilyn's voice rising in indignation at the other end of the lobby. The front desk must have notified them already. I don't turn around. Will you be checking in now, Mrs. Carter? I shake my head, picking up my new key card. No, I'll return this evening. But first, I have some shopping to do. My voice sounds strange to my own ears, calmer than I feel, with an edge I've never heard before. Walking out of the hotel, I hear Ryan calling my name. I don't stop. The summer air hits my face, and for the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. My phone buzzes continuously in my bag. Ryan, Marilyn, Lindsay, all demanding explanations. I slide into my car and finally check one message. It's from Nate. Aunt Brielle, where are you? I missed you. My throat tightens. I type back. I'll see you soon, buddy, I promise. Then I block everyone else's numbers and pull away from the curb. They wanted a vacation without me? Fine. Let's see how they enjoy it without my money instead. I spend 3 hours driving aimlessly before pulling into Oliver's driveway. He takes one look at my face and wordlessly leads me to his back porch, returning with 2 glasses of whiskey. The ice cubes clink against the crystal as my hands shake. They planned it for weeks, I say, staring at the manicured lawn. Weeks of lying to my face, laughing behind my back, and I just kept writing checks. Oliver leans back in his chair, his silence more comforting than any platitudes. We've known each other since we were kids in foster care. He understands the weight of chosen family. My phone lights up again, Ryan's 20th call. This time, he leaves a voicemail. I put it on speaker. "Bree, baby, please. Mom's hysterical. The hotel's threatening to call security. Just talk to me. We can fix this." Oliver snorts. Funny how fixing this only matters when the money stops flowing. Before I can respond, my phone chimes with a text from Lindsay. "How dare you embarrass us like this, after everything we've done for you? Everything they've done for me?" My laugh sounds hollow. "Last month, I paid for Nate's entire private school tuition. Last week, I covered Marilyn's emergency roof repair. Yesterday, I bought Lindsay's husband a new golf set because she said he was depressed. And Ryan? Ryan?" I take a long sip of whiskey. "Ryan hasn't held a job longer than 6 months since we got married. Says he's finding himself. Meanwhile, I'm running my company, managing their lives, and apparently funding vacations I'm not good enough to attend." My phone buzzes again. This time it's Marilyn. "I've never been so humiliated. Is this how you repay family?" Family," I whisper, the word bitter on my tongue. "You know what Marilyn told me when Ryan proposed? She said I was lucky they were willing to overlook my unfortunate background. That money couldn't buy class, but at least it could buy acceptance." Oliver's expression darkens. "And you stayed?" I press my palms against my eyes. I thought if I tried hard enough, gave enough, they'd eventually see me. Really see me. God, I'm such an idiot. You're not an idiot. You're someone who lost her parents too young and wanted a family. They're the ones who took advantage of that. A new message appears, from Nate's phone, but clearly typed by Lindsay. "Nate's crying because of you. Hope you're happy." Something snaps inside me. I stand up, pacing the porch. 3 years. 3 years of bending over backward, of smiling through their snide comments, of watching Ryan choose them over me every single time. And for what? To be their dirty little secret? Their personal ATM? So what are you going to do about it? I stop pacing, my mind suddenly clear. First, I'm calling my lawyer, then my accountant. I need to know exactly how much of my money they've burned through. And Ryan? Ryan made his choice in that hotel lobby. I drain my glass. Now I'm making mine. Oliver studies me for a moment. "You know they'll try to paint you as the villain, the cold-hearted rich woman who abandoned her loving family." "Let them try." I pull out my phone and start typing. I've kept every receipt, every text message begging for money, every email about their latest emergency. 3 years of documentation showing exactly how loving they've been. A car pulls into Oliver's driveway, Ryan's BMW. The one I bought him for his birthday. How did he find me? "Probably tracked your phone," Oliver says, standing. "Want me to tell him to leave?" I watch Ryan step out of the car, his familiar nervous gesture of running his hand through his hair. For a moment, I see the man I fell in love with. Then I remember his laughter in the hotel lobby. "No," I say, straightening my spine. "I think it's time I stopped letting other people fight my battles." "Want me to stay?" "Yes." I squeeze his hand. "But let me handle this." Ryan approaches the porch, his face a mask of practiced concern. "Bree, baby, you're not thinking clearly." I cut him off. "Actually, Ryan, for the first time in 3 years, I'm thinking very clearly. Now, would you like to explain why you lied about the vacation, or should we start with how much money you've borrowed from my company account?" His face goes pale. Checkmate. The numbers on my laptop screen blur together as I scroll through years of bank statements. Each transaction tells a story, not of family bonds, but of calculated exploitation. My accountant's email sits open in another tab, its contents still making my stomach churn. Did you know? I ask Ryan, who sits across my home office, his head in his hands. About your mother's gambling? He doesn't answer. The silence stretches between us like a chasm. $40,000, Ryan. That's how much she's lost at Riverbend Casino in the past year alone, using the credit card I gave her for emergencies. She said it was for medical bills, he mumbles. I laugh, the sound sharp enough to make him flinch. And the $20,000 she transferred to Lindsay's account last month? Was that for medical bills too? Lindsay's marriage is falling apart because her husband lost their savings on bad investments. I know, she told me. What she didn't tell me was that she's been funneling my money into his latest scheme. My phone buzzes. A text from Marilyn. We need to talk about this misunderstanding, dear. Over lunch at LeBlanc tomorrow? LeBlanc. The same restaurant where she'd introduced me to her country club friends as Ryan's wife. You know, the one with the tech money. Where she'd later cornered me about investing in her friend's son's startup. You don't understand, Ryan starts. Mom's always what? Always manipulated people? Always used others to maintain her illusion of wealth? I stand up, pacing. Did you know she told her friends that she bought me my company as a wedding gift? That she's my silent partner? Ryan's head snaps up. She wouldn't. Check your phone. I'm sure someone's already forwarded you the country club newsletter. There's a lovely article about the generous Marilyn Carter mentoring her daughter-in-law in business. He pulls out his phone, his face draining of color as he reads. I'll talk to her. Make her retract it. Like you talked to her about the vacation? Or about using my company's credit line for her shopping sprees? I stop pacing, facing him directly. When exactly do you plan to start standing up to her, Ryan? A knock at the door interrupts us. Through the glass panel, I see Lindsay, her mascara streaked with tears. Perfect timing, as always. Don't, Ryan warns as I move to open the door. But I do anyway. Lindsay bursts in, waving her phone. The bank froze our accounts. How could you do this to us? I froze the accounts I was paying for, I correct her. Your personal accounts are your business. Nate's tuition payment is due next week. Funny you should mention that. I turn back to my laptop, pulling up another document. I was just reviewing the wire transfers. Did you know your mother's been redirecting Nate's tuition money to her personal account? The school hasn't received a payment in months. The silence that follows is deafening. Lindsay sinks into a chair, her face ashen. Ryan stands so abruptly, his chair topples backward. That's impossible, he whispers. Mom wouldn't. The same mom who's been telling everyone she owns my company? The same mom who's been losing thousands at casinos while crying about medical bills? I turn the laptop around. Look at the transfers yourself. As they lean in to read, my phone buzzes again. This time it's Oliver. Documents you requested are ready. Want me to send them to your lawyer? I type back a quick yes, just as Lindsay lets out a choked sob. What are we going to do? She asks, her voice small. We, I echo. There is no we anymore. You made that clear at the hotel. But Nate. I'll pay Nate's tuition directly to the school, I cut in. He shouldn't suffer for the adult's mistakes, but everything else stops now. Ryan reaches for my hand. I step back. Bree, please, we can fix this. As a family. I look at him, really look at him, and feel nothing but tired. That's the problem, Ryan. We were never really a family. I was just the bank account you all married into. My phone buzzes one final time. Marilyn again. Don't make me tell people the truth about where you really came from, dear. Family protects family. I show the message to Ryan and Lindsay. Their faces tell me everything I need to know about whose side they'll choose. Get out, I say quietly, both of you, and tell your mother that if she wants to play with truth, I have 3 years of receipts ready for show and tell. My mother's embroidery hoop sits in my lap, threads tangled like the mess of my life. The familiar weight of it grounds me as I sit in my home office, surrounded by financial documents and divorce papers. 3 weeks have passed since the hotel incident. And the threads of my marriage continue to unravel. A knock at the door makes me jump. Through the window, I see Nate shifting from foot to foot on my porch, his backpack clutched to his chest. I open the door. Shouldn't you be in school? Mom and Dad are fighting again. His voice is small. Grandma's there too. They're all yelling about money and it's scary. My heart twists. I usher him inside, noting how his shoulders relax once he's in my kitchen. While I make hot chocolate, he pulls out his homework, falling into our old routine as if nothing has changed. Aunt Brielle? He doesn't look up from his math worksheet. Are you really not coming to my baseball game tomorrow? The mug nearly slips from my hand. Who told you that? Grandma! She said you don't want to be part of our family anymore. I set the hot chocolate down harder than necessary. Before I can respond, my phone lights up with a text from Oliver. Check your email, now. 1 second, buddy, I tell Nate, stepping into the hallway to read the email. My blood runs cold. Oliver's team has uncovered a second mortgage on my house, taken out 6 months ago with forged signatures. The money trail leads straight to Marilyn's personal account. Another text from Oliver. Police want to know if you're pressing charges. My hands shake as I type back. Give me an hour. When I return to the kitchen, Nate is staring at my mother's embroidery hoop. This is pretty. Can you teach me? Of course. I sit beside him, grateful for the distraction. My mom taught me when I was your age. Said it helped her think clearly when life got messy. Like now? Yeah, like now. I guide his hands through a simple stitch. Sometimes people make bad choices when they're scared or desperate. Like Grandma? I freeze. What do you mean? He concentrates on the thread, not meeting my eyes. I heard her telling Mom that if you went to the police, she'd tell everyone about the orphanage, that it would ruin your business. The doorbell rings before I can process this. Through the window, I see Lindsay's car in my driveway. Nate! She calls out. Get out here right now! He clutches the embroidery hoop. Please don't make me go. Nathan Carter! Lindsay pounds on the door. Mom's worried sick. How dare you run away like this? I open the door but block the entrance. He didn't run away. He came to the one place he feels safe. Safe? Lindsay's laugh is brittle. You destroyed our family and you dare talk about safety? I discovered the fraud, Lindsay. The second mortgage. The forged documents. I watch her face pale. Did you know about that too? Mom said it was temporary, just until Dad's investments paid off. Stop! I hold up my hand. Just stop! I'm done with the lies. I turn to Nate, who's watching us with wide eyes. Buddy, you should go with your mom now. He hands me the embroidery hoop reluctantly. Will I still see you? Of course you will, Lindsay cuts in. Once she realizes how childish she's being. No, I interrupt. I'll be at your game tomorrow, Nate. Front row. And after that, we'll figure something out. I promise. After they leave, I pick up my phone and dial Oliver's number. You okay? He asks. They're using Nate as a pawn. I trace my mother's stitches with my finger. And now Marilyn's threatening to expose my background if I go to the police. She's bluffing. Your company's success has nothing to do with where you came from. Maybe not. I take a deep breath. But I need to end this my way. What are you thinking? I look at the embroidery hoop, at the intricate pattern my mother created one stitch at a time. I'm thinking it's time to stop trying to protect people who never tried to protect me. And Nate? I'll protect him by showing him that actions have consequences, even family's actions. I pause. Send the evidence to the police, all of it. You sure? Yes. I pick up my needle. It's time to finish this pattern. The police statement sits unsigned on my desk when Ryan shows up at my door, clutching a bouquet of roses and wearing his most apologetic smile. Happy birthday, baby. Let me take you to dinner. I almost laugh at the absurdity. My 33rd birthday, and he remembers it only after his mother's arrest makes the local news. The roses are nice, I say, not opening the door fully. Did your mother pay for them with my credit card too? His smile falters. Bree, please. Mom's lawyer says if you drop the charges. Stop. I hold up my hand. Just stop. It's your birthday. Let me make this right. He pulls out a hotel reservation confirmation. I booked us the presidential suite at the Grand. Just us this time. No family drama. The same hotel where this all started. My phone buzzes. Another message from Marilyn's lawyer, no doubt trying to negotiate. I've received 15 calls today, alone. Come on, Ryan pleads. Remember our first anniversary there? How perfect it was. I do remember. I also remember finding out later that he'd invited his mother to join us for dinner that night, and I'd only avoided that surprise because she'd had a last-minute spa appointment, paid for with my card, of course. Your mother's facing fraud charges, Ryan, real ones, with real consequences. She made a mistake. We all did. But we're family. Family? I pull out my phone, scrolling through messages. Like when Lindsay told the country club I was investigated for embezzlement? Or when your mother tried to convince my board of directors that I was mentally unstable? They're scared. You've taken everything. I took back what was mine. My voice doesn't shake anymore when I say this. There's a difference. He steps closer, his cologne familiar and dangerous. One dinner. Let me explain everything. Before I can respond, a car pulls into my driveway. Oliver's. He steps out, holding a manila envelope, his face grim. Perfect timing, I say, stepping back from Ryan. Come in, Oliver. Ryan's expression darkens. Him? Really? On our birthday dinner night? Your mother's birthday gift arrived early, Oliver says, handing me the envelope. Thought you should see it right away. Inside are screenshots from a private investigator. Photos of my childhood foster homes, medical records, court documents about my parents' death. All annotated in Marilyn's elegant handwriting. Too traumatized for business leadership. History of family instability. Potential PR nightmare. She was going to send these to your shareholders next week, Oliver explains, along with some creative interpretations of your company's financials. Ryan grabs the papers. She wouldn't. She was just protecting herself. From what? I ask quietly. From the orphan who gave her everything she asked for? Who funded her lifestyle? Who tried so desperately to be the daughter she wanted? If you'd just drop the charges. Get out! The words come easily now. Both of you. Oliver raises an eyebrow, but nods, understanding. As he leaves, Ryan makes one last attempt. The hotel reservation, our anniversary suite, is as empty as every promise you've ever made. I hand him back the roses. Give these to your mother. I'm sure she'll appreciate the gesture, especially since she probably paid for them. Bree! I signed the divorce papers this morning. I step back inside. Happy birthday to me. I close the door on his protests and lean against it, listening to his footsteps fade. My phone buzzes again, a text from Nate. Happy birthday, Aunt Brielle. Mom says I can't come over, but I made you something in art class. Attached is a photo of a crayon drawing. Me, teaching him embroidery. Both of us smiling. In wobbly letters across the top, real family. I look at my mother's embroidery hoop, then at Marilyn's annotated investigation photos. 3 years of trying to buy love, of attempting to stitch together a family that was already rotted at the seams. I pick up the unsigned police statement. There's a certain poetry to it. Marilyn trying to use my past against me, not realizing that surviving that past is what finally gives me the strength to do this. I sign my name with steady hands. Some patterns, I've learned, aren't worth completing. The Grand Hotel's presidential suite feels like a mausoleum. I stand at the window, watching the sunset paint the city gold, while my phone lights up with messages from Ryan's lawyer. Apparently, pressing charges against your mother-in-law is unnecessarily vindictive. A knock at the door makes me jump. Room service wheels in my solitary birthday dinner, the same meal I'd planned to share with the family weeks ago. The waiter's pitying smile tells me he remembers me from that day. Will anyone be joining you, Mrs. Carter? No. I gesture to the empty room. Just me. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Lindsay. Mom's being processed for booking. I hope you're happy. Nate keeps asking why his grandmother is in jail. I block her number, but not before seeing the attached photo. Marilyn in handcuffs, looking small and broken. Nothing like the imperious woman who once told me I'd never truly belong in their world. The champagne tastes like ash in my mouth. Across the room, my reflection fragments in the mirrored walls. Dozens of Brielles, all alone on their birthday. The victory feels hollow. Another knock. This time it's Oliver, his expression grim. "You shouldn't be alone tonight," he says, stepping inside. "I'm fine." "Really? Because the hotel staff said you booked this suite for a week. Planning to hide up here?" Before I can answer, my phone rings. An unknown number. Oliver grabs it before I can decline. "Hello?" His face darkens. "She doesn't want to." "Hold on." He puts it on speaker. Nate's voice fills the room. "Aunt Brielle, are you there?" My throat tightens. "Hi, buddy. Dad says you're trying to hurt our family, but that's not true, right? You're coming to my game tomorrow?" In the background, I hear Ryan's voice. "That's enough, Nate. Give me the phone." The line goes dead. Oliver watches me sink onto the couch. "They're using him against me," I whisper. "They're desperate. The fraud charges." "Maybe I should drop them." The words taste bitter. "For Nate's sake." "And let them win? After everything?" I gesture at the elaborate suite, the untouched dinner. "Look at me, Oliver. Hiding in the same hotel where this all started, eating alone on my birthday. Some victory." Brielle. Another knock interrupts us. This time it's the hotel manager, looking uncomfortable. "Mrs. Carter, there's a situation in the lobby. Your husband and his family are demanding to see you. They're causing quite a scene." I follow him to the security monitors. There they are, Ryan, Lindsay, and several Carter cousins, all wearing party hats and carrying gifts. A grotesque parody of a birthday celebration. "They're saying you destroyed their family," the manager explains, "that you're mentally unstable from your childhood trauma." My hands shake. "How did they—" "Your mother-in-law's lawyer released your foster care records to the press an hour ago." Oliver shows me his phone. The story's already trending locally. "They're painting you as a damaged orphan, taking revenge on the family that tried to help you." The room spins. Years of carefully built walls, of protecting my past, crumbling in minutes. "Mrs. Carter?" The manager shifts nervously. "Should we call the police?" Through the monitor, I watch Ryan charm the front desk staff, see Lindsay cry prettily for the gathering crowd. They're playing their roles perfectly. The concerned family, trying to help their troubled relative. "No," I say finally. "No police." "Brielle," Oliver warns, "don't let them manipulate you." But I'm already walking to the elevator. In my reflection, I see my mother's stubborn chin, her straight spine. The strength that helped her survive until cancer took her, leaving me alone at 12. "What are you doing?" Oliver follows me. "Finishing this. My way." The elevator doors open to the lobby. My husband and his family wait with their audience, their gifts, their practiced concerned expressions. Ready to play out their drama, to cast me as the villain or the victim, whichever serves them better. But they've forgotten something crucial. I learned long ago in those foster homes. Sometimes the only way to win is to change the game entirely. I step out of the elevator, my mother's final lesson echoing in my mind. Sometimes, baby, you have to burn it all down to build something true. The hotel lobby falls silent as I approach. Ryan steps forward, arms outstretched, playing the concerned husband for his growing audience. "Bree, sweetheart, we're all here to help. Like you helped yourself to my company's credit line?" My voice carries across the marble floor. "Or like your mother helped herself to a second mortgage on my house?" Lindsay clutches her pearls. "The ones I bought her last Christmas." "You're making a scene." "No." I turn to address the watching crowd. "A scene is what your mother made at the country club, telling everyone she built my company. A scene is what you made at the bank, trying to access my accounts with forged documents. That's enough." Ryan grabs my arm. "You're having another episode." I wrench away from him. Touch me again, and I'll add assault to the charges. Oliver steps between us, but I wave him back. The crowd has grown, phones recording everything. Perfect. You want to talk about my past? I project my voice, letting it fill the space. Let's talk about it. Yes, I was orphaned at 12. Yes, I went through foster care. And yes, I built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing. Murmurs ripple through the audience. Ryan's cousins shift uncomfortably. What they won't tell you, I continue, is how they used that company's success, how they drained its resources while mocking its founder, how they planned vacations with my money while excluding me from them. That's not true, Lindsay shrieks. We loved you. Really? I pull out my phone. Should I play the recording from this lobby 3 weeks ago, where you all laughed about keeping me away? Or should I show the bank statements proving where my money really went? Ryan pales. Bree, please, think about Mom. Your mother thought about herself plenty when she forged my signature, when she planned to destroy my reputation with my childhood records. A new voice cuts through the tension. Is that true, Dad? Nate pushes through the crowd, his baseball uniform dusty from practice. His eyes are wide, questioning. Nate, go wait in the car. Lindsay starts. No? He stands his ground. Is that why Grandma's in jail? Because she stole from Aunt Brielle? The silence is deafening. Ryan looks between his nephew and me, trapped in his own web of lies. They didn't just steal money, Nate. My voice softens. They stole trust. They stole family. We are your family, Ryan explodes. Everything we did because you needed us. You were alone, damaged. I was never damaged. I step closer, meeting his eyes. I was strong enough to survive loss, to build something from nothing. The only damage here is what you did to cover your own inadequacies. Lindsay lunges forward, hand raised to slap me, but Oliver catches her wrist. The crowd gasps. It's over, I announce, loud enough for everyone to hear. The fraud charges stand, the divorce proceeds, and this, I gesture to their gathering, their gifts, their performance. This ends now. You'll regret this, Ryan warns, when everyone knows your story. My story? I laugh, and it feels like freedom. My story is that I survived. I succeeded. And now I'm strong enough to walk away from people who never deserved me. I turn to Nate, who watches with tears in his eyes. Your baseball game tomorrow. I'll be there. Front row. Some promises are worth keeping. Then I face the crowd. These strangers who came for drama, but will leave with truth. The rest of you can read all about it in tomorrow's papers. My lawyer has quite a story to tell. As security finally arrives to escort the Carter family out, Ryan makes one last attempt. Everything I did was for love. No? I watch them go, my voice steady. Everything you did was for money. Everything I did was for love. That's the difference. The lobby slowly empties, leaving me with Oliver and the echoes of confrontation. My hands shake, but my spine is straight. You okay? Oliver asks. I look at my reflection in the marble floors, no longer fragmented, no longer hiding. I'm free. The baseball field buzzes with weekend energy as I find my seat in the front row. Parents clutch coffee cups and cheer cards, unaware or uncaring of yesterday's hotel drama. Social media moves fast. Today's scandals have already buried yesterday's viral videos. Nate spots me from the dugout and waves. I wave back, ignoring Lindsay's rigid posture 3 rows behind me. The divorce papers were signed this morning, their weight still fresh in my hands. Ryan didn't show up. Bold choice, Oliver says, settling beside me with hot chocolates. Coming here after everything. Some promises matter more than revenge. Nate steps up to bat, his stance perfect. We practiced for hours in my backyard last summer. The pitch comes fast, but he's ready. The crack of bat meeting ball echoes across the field. As he runs, something falls from his pocket. Later, when the crowd disperses and his team celebrates their victory, I find it near home plate, a folded piece of paper with my name. He wanted you to have that, Lindsay says, appearing beside me. She looks different, smaller somehow, without her designer clothes and perfect makeup. He wrote it the night Mom was arrested. I unfold the paper carefully, in a child's careful handwriting. Dear Aunt Brielle, thank you for teaching me that family isn't about money. Mom says we can't be family anymore, but she also said lying was okay sometimes, so I don't believe her. Can you still teach me to make pictures with thread? Love, Nate. Beneath his words, he's drawn us at my embroidery table, surrounded by colored threads and possibility. He misses your lessons, Lindsay says quietly. I miss him. She twists her wedding ring, the one her husband pawned last month. Everything's falling apart. Mom's facing jail time, Ryan's drinking, my marriage. She trails off. I don't know how to fix any of it. Maybe some things aren't meant to be fixed. Maybe they're meant to be rebuilt. She meets my eyes for the first time since the hotel. I'm sorry, not just for the money or the lies, for forgetting who you really were, beneath all the things we wanted from you. I touch my mother's embroidery hoop, always in my bag now. You know what my mom used to say about embroidery? The back of the pattern shows the truth, all the knots and tangles that create the beautiful image on top. You can't have one without the other. Nate runs over, still in his baseball uniform. Did you see my hit? Wouldn't have missed it for anything, buddy. He eyes his mother nervously. Can I still come over sometimes? Before Lindsay can answer, I pull out my mother's hoop and some bright threads. Actually, I'm starting an embroidery class at the community center. Saturdays at 10. All ages welcome. His face lights up. Mom? Please? Lindsay looks between us, something shifting in her expression. Maybe we both could come. If that's okay? I hand her the hoop, watching her fingers trace the unfinished pattern my mother left behind. Some patterns are worth starting over. Later, driving home, Oliver asks, was that revenge or forgiveness back there? I think about Nate's letter, about Lindsay's humility, about the way patterns emerge from chaos, one stitch at a time. Neither, both. Maybe they're just different threads in the same design. At home, I find a package on my doorstep, my old foster care files, returned by Marilyn's lawyer with a note. She wants you to know she's sorry. I don't open them. Instead, I start a new pattern on my mother's hoop. Something original, with space for mistakes and beautiful imperfections. Room for new threads to join the old. The phone rings, my company's board, probably wanting statements about yesterday's revelations. It can wait. Right now, I have a pattern to begin, and this time, I'm choosing every thread myself. Through my window, the setting sun catches on my embroidery needles, throwing patterns of light across the walls. They look like possibilities.
I'm Meryl, and I grew up in what you'd call an ordinary family. Mom and Dad were hardworking folks, trying their best to raise 2 girls. That's right, I had a younger sister, Sarah. She came into this world 5 years after me, and boy, did she shake things up. From the get-go, I was the good kid. Studied hard, got along with everyone, never caused trouble. Sarah? She was a whole different story. I remember this one time when I was 10 and Sarah was 5. We were at the grocery store with Mom and Sarah wanted some candy. No, Sarah, Mom said firmly. We've got plenty of snacks at home. Sarah's face turned red, but I want it now, she screamed, throwing herself on the floor. People started staring. Mom looked embarrassed, trying to calm Sarah down. But Sarah wouldn't budge. She kicked and screamed louder, I hate you. You never let me have anything. That was just one of many incidents. As we grew older, things didn't get better. Sarah's behavior became more erratic. She'd have these intense mood swings, going from laughing to screaming in seconds. One day, Mom and Dad took Sarah to a psychologist. When they came back, I could tell something was up. They sat me down in the living room, looking all serious. Meryl, Dad started, we need to talk to you about Sarah. Mom chimed in. The doctor says Sarah has something called a DHD. It means her brain works a bit differently. I nodded, not really understanding. Is that why she acts out all the time? Yes, sweetie, Mom said. And we need your help. We have to be extra patient with Sarah now. Little did I know that conversation would set the tone for the next decade of my life. Everything became about Sarah, her needs, her moods, her outbursts. And me? I was expected to be the understanding older sister, always patient, always forgiving. But let me tell you, it wasn't easy. As Sarah's behavior got worse, my parents' attention shifted more and more towards her. They were so afraid of upsetting her that they started giving in to her every whim. Meanwhile, I was left to fend for myself. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't neglected. But compared to the constant attention Sarah got, it felt like I was invisible sometimes. As the years went by, Sarah's behavior became a roller coaster ride. One week, she'd be almost normal, helping with chores, doing her homework, even being nice to me. But it never lasted. I remember one afternoon when I was 16. I came home from school to find Sarah sitting at the kitchen table, actually doing her math homework. "Hey Sarah," I said, surprised. "How's it going?" She looked up and smiled. "Pretty good. I think I'm finally getting this algebra stuff." For a moment, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe things were finally turning around. But a week later, that hope was shattered. I was in my room studying when I heard a crash downstairs. Sarah was screaming at Mom. "I don't care about stupid school. You can't make me go," then came the sound of breaking glass. I sighed and put my headphones on. Just another day in our house. When I turned 17, things got even worse. I was trying to prepare for college applications, but Sarah seemed determined to make it impossible. One evening I was at my desk, deep in a practice SAT test. Suddenly, ear-splitting music blasted through the walls. I stormed into Sarah's room. "Can you turn that down? I'm trying to study." "Boo-hoo," she mocked. "Poor Meryl needs to study." "Well, I need to listen to music. Deal with it." I went to our parents, hoping they'd intervene. But their response left me speechless. "Honey," Mom said, "you know your sister has trouble controlling herself. Try to be understanding." Dad nodded. "Maybe you could study at the library? We don't want to upset Sarah." I couldn't believe it. "But what about me? Don't my needs matter?" Mom patted my hand. "Of course they do, sweetie. But Sarah's condition makes things difficult for her. We all need to make allowances." I went back to my room, fuming. It was always about Sarah, always. A few weeks later, Sarah dropped a bombshell at dinner. "I want to go live with Grandma," she announced. Mom and Dad exchanged worried looks. "Are you sure?" Honey, Mom asked. "That's a big change." Sarah nodded. "Grandma said I could come anytime. She'll let me do whatever I want." I held my breath, hardly daring to hope. To my surprise, my parents agreed. "Maybe a change of scenery would be good for everyone," Dad said. As Sarah packed her bags, she cornered me in the hallway. "Don't think you're getting rid of me," she hissed. "Grandma's loaded, you know. She'll spoil me rotten and leave me everything in her will. You'll be working your ass off in college while I'm set for life." I just rolled my eyes. "Whatever, Sarah. Just go." For the next 6 months, our house was peaceful. I could finally focus on my studies without constant interruptions. I aced my SATs and got accepted into a public college in another city. I'd been in college for a few months when I got the call. It was Mom, and she sounded exhausted. "It's Sarah, she's back home. Your grandmother, she couldn't handle Sarah anymore. Said she was too disobedient, always causing trouble. She even blamed us for bad parenting. Now she won't talk to any of us." I closed my eyes, feeling a mix of frustration and pity. "I'm sorry, Mom. That must be tough." "It is," she admitted. "We're trying everything. Taking her to a new psychologist, giving her whatever she wants. We're hoping it'll help." Then came the kicker. "Meryl, sweetie, about your college expenses, we can't help you anymore. All our money is going towards Sarah's treatment and, well, her demands. You'll need to support yourself from now on." After we hung up, I just sat there trying to process it all. Once again, Sarah had managed to upend my life without even being present. But I wasn't about to let this derail me. I found a part-time job at a local diner and called my grandmother. Of course I'll help you, dear Grandma said when I explained the situation. It's the least I can do after everything you've been through. True to her word, Grandma started sending me money for rent and even visited me a few times. During one of her visits, we had a heart-to-heart. You know, Meryl, she said, sipping her tea, I feel guilty about Sarah. I thought I could handle her, but still I'm glad I can help you. You deserve it, sweetheart. Those years in college were tough, but also liberating. For the first time, I was free from Sarah's shadow. I made friends, studied hard, and even started dating a bit. After graduation, I landed a job in the same city and decided to stay. It felt good to have my own life, away from the chaos at home. I did visit my parents occasionally, but Sarah was never around. One time I asked Mom about her. Oh, she's out with friends, Mom said, wringing her hands. She's been gone for days now. We can barely keep track of her anymore. Dad chimed in, always with different boys too. There's Jake, or was it John? And then there's that Mike fellow. I raised an eyebrow. And you're okay with this? Mom shrugged helplessly. What can we do? It's just how she is. The psychologist says it's part of her condition. I bit my tongue to keep from saying what I really thought. It was always excuses with them when it came to Sarah. During another visit, I found Mom crying in the kitchen. What's wrong? I asked, alarmed. She wiped her eyes. It's Sarah. She's been gone for 2 weeks this time. We don't know where she is or who she's with. I felt a pang of worry, despite everything. Have you called the police? Dad shook his head. We did once before. She came back on her own and was furious with us for reporting her missing. Said we were trying to control her life. I left that day feeling frustrated and sad. It was clear that nothing had changed. Sarah was still the center of their world, no matter how badly she behaved. As I drove back to my apartment, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the life I'd built for myself. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Time flies when you're building your own life. Before I knew it, 3 years had passed since I'd graduated college. I was settling into my career, making new friends, and finally feeling like I had some stability. Then came the phone call that threw me for a loop. Meryl? It's Mom. You'll never guess what's happened. Sarah's getting married. I nearly dropped the phone. Married? Sarah. Mom's voice was brimming with excitement. Yes, can you believe it? She just told us. The wedding's in 2 months. You'll come, won't you? Still in shock, I agreed. The day of the wedding arrived, and I flew back home. As I helped Sarah get ready, she dropped another bombshell. Mom and Dad are paying for our honeymoon, she said smugly. 2 weeks in Bali. First class all the way. I bit my tongue. Of course they were. That's nice of them, I managed. Sarah smirked. Well, they owe me. After all the crap I've been through. I wanted to point out that most of that crap was of her own making, but I held back. It was her wedding day, after all. When I finally met Sarah's fiancé, Mark, I was taken aback. He was nothing like I'd imagined. Tall, handsome, and at least 10 years older than Sarah, he exuded an air of calm confidence. It's great to finally meet you, Meryl, he said, shaking my hand. Sarah's told me so much about you. I raised an eyebrow at Sarah, wondering what exactly she'd told him. To my surprise, the wedding went off without a hitch. Sarah looked radiant, and for once, she seemed genuinely happy. As I watched them exchange vows, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this really would be the turning point for her. At the reception, Mom cornered me by the punch bowl. Isn't this wonderful, Meryl, she gushed. Sarah's really landed on her feet. Mark's so successful, and he clearly adores her. I nodded, sipping my drink. It's great, Mom. I'm happy for her. Then came the kicker. You know, sweetie, maybe it's time you started thinking about settling down too. You're not getting any younger. I nearly choked on my punch. Mom, I'm only 26. She patted my arm. I know, dear. But look at Sarah. She's really got it all figured out now. As I flew back to my city the next day, I couldn't shake a nagging feeling. Despite everything, I genuinely hoped Sarah had found happiness. But a small part of me wondered how long it would last. Life went on. I threw myself into work, trying not to dwell on my family's dynamics. Then, about a year after Sarah's wedding, something unexpected happened. I met someone. His name was Tom, and we hit it off immediately. He was kind, funny, and actually listened when I talked. For the first time, I felt like I'd found someone who saw me for who I really was. 2 years flew by in a whirlwind of dates, laughter, and deepening love. Then, on a crisp autumn evening, Tom got down on one knee and asked me to marry him. As I said yes, tears of joy streaming down my face, I felt like my life was finally falling into place. Planning my wedding to Tom was like a dream. For once, I was the center of attention, and it felt amazing. I was determined to make it perfect, a day that was all about us and our love. Of course, I invited my family. Despite everything, they were still my parents, and Sarah was still my sister. I hoped that maybe, just maybe, this happy occasion would bring us all together. When Sarah showed up at the venue, she was alone. I felt a knot form in my stomach. "Where's Mark?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Sarah shrugged. "Couldn't make it." "Is everything okay?" I pressed. "It's fine," she snapped. "Can we drop it?" I backed off, not wanting to start an argument on my wedding day. But later, I overheard Mom and Dad talking in hushed tones. "I'm worried about Sarah and Mark," Mom was saying. "They're fighting all the time now. But it's not her fault, she's just high-spirited. Mark needs to be more understanding." I walked away, shaking my head. Some things never change. The ceremony was beautiful, everything I'd dreamed of. Tom's eyes shone with love as we said our vows, and for a while I forgot all about the family drama. But at the reception, Sarah made sure she couldn't be ignored. She got drunk, loudly flirted with Tom's friends, and even tried to give a speech that quickly devolved into a rant about how unfair her life had been. I gritted my teeth and plastered on a smile, determined not to let her ruin my day. Tom, bless him, stuck by my side, squeezing my hand supportively. As Sarah was dragged off the dance floor by our embarrassed parents, I made a silent vow to myself. This was the last time I'd let her drama overshadow my life. For a while, it seemed like I might actually keep that vow. Tom and I settled into married life, and I heard little from my family beyond the occasional phone call. Then, almost exactly a year after our wedding, my phone rang. It was Mom, and she was crying. "Meryl, it's Sarah. Mark left her." Between sobs, Mom explained. Mark had found out about Sarah's multiple affairs and filed for divorce. She was devastated, they said, acting out worse than ever. "We don't know what to do," Mom wailed. "The psychologist says she needs a change of scenery, some time away to heal." I knew what was coming before she said it. "Honey, we were hoping. Could Sarah stay with you for a while? Remember how we sent her to your grandmother's so you could study for your exams? We need your help now." I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar weight of family obligations settling on my shoulders. "Let me talk to Tom," I said finally. After I hung up, I sat Tom down and explained the situation. He listened patiently, his brow furrowed with concern, but finally agreed. Sarah arrived on a Tuesday, looking like a shadow of her former self. Her eyes were puffy from crying, and she barely spoke above a whisper. For the first time in years, I felt a genuine pang of sympathy for my little sister. "Come on," I said gently, leading her to the guest room. "Let's get you settled in." Tom was amazing those first few days. He cooked Sarah's favorite meals, engaged her in light conversation, and even took a day off work to help us go shopping for some new clothes to cheer her up. But as the saying goes, no good deed goes unpunished. About a week into Sarah's stay, I started noticing changes. Small things at first, a lingering look here, a accidental brush against Tom there. I tried to brush it off as my imagination running wild. Then one day I came home from work to find Sarah parading around the living room in what could barely be called underwear. Tom was sitting on the couch, looking incredibly uncomfortable. "Sarah," I exclaimed. "What are you doing?" She turned, feigning innocence. "Oh, hi, Meryl. I was just about to take a shower." "It's so hot today, isn't it, Tom?" Tom mumbled something incoherent and practically ran from the room. That night, I confronted Sarah. "Look, I know you're going through a tough time, but you need to respect our home and our marriage." She rolled her eyes. "God, Meryl, don't be such a prude. I was just trying to cool off." I didn't buy it for a second, but I let it go. Big mistake. Over the next few days, Sarah's behavior became more and more brazen. She'd accidentally walk in on Tom in the bathroom, or bend over suggestively when he was around. I was at my wit's end. Then came the day that broke the camel's back. I came home early from work, a migraine pounding behind my eyes. As I approached our apartment, I heard Sarah's voice, loud and clear. "Come on, Tom, Meryl never has to know. Don't you want to have some real fun for once?" I burst through the door to find Sarah pressed up against my husband, her hands on his chest. Tom looked horrified. "Meryl," he exclaimed, pushing Sarah away. "This isn't what it looks like." Sarah spun around, a look of faux shock on her face. "Oh my God, Meryl, I'm so embarrassed. I just tripped and Tom caught me." I saw red. "Get out," I said, my voice dangerously low. "Pack your things and get the hell out of my house. Now." Sarah's face contorted with rage. "Fine, I never wanted to stay in this dump anyway. You're pathetic, Meryl. Always so boring, so frigid." She turned to Tom, who was standing there in shock. "You could do so much better than her, you know. A hot piece like me instead of Ice Queen Meryl." I grabbed her arm and dragged her to the guest room. "You have 5 minutes to pack, or I'm throwing your stuff out the window." As Sarah scrambled to gather her things, hurling insults the whole time, I turned to Tom. He looked devastated. "Meryl, I swear nothing happened. She's been trying for days, but I would never." I cut him off with a hug. "I know. I trust you. I'm so sorry I put you through this." We held each other as we listened to Sarah's continued tirade. Finally, she emerged from the room, suitcase in hand. "You'll regret this," she spat. "Both of you." As the door slammed behind her, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. As we stood there in our now quiet apartment, I realized something. The family I'd spent my whole life trying to please, trying to fix, they weren't my real family anymore. Tom was. And it was time I started putting our life, our marriage, first. I hadn't even finished my first cup of coffee the next morning when my phone rang. It was Mom. I braced myself and answered. "How could you, Meryl?" Mom's voice was shrill with anger. "Kicking your own sister out onto the street. I thought we raised you better than that." I took a deep breath. "Mom, it's not what you think." But she cut me off. "Sarah told us everything. How you got jealous because she and Tom were getting along. How you made up lies about her to justify throwing her out. I'm so disappointed in you." My jaw dropped. "What? Mom, that's not true at all. Sarah tried to seduce Tom. She was walking around half naked, throwing herself at him. She even propositioned him." There was a pause, then Dad's voice came on the line. "Now, Meryl, don't you think you're exaggerating a bit? We know Sarah has her issues, but she's family, and family supports each other, no matter what." Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration and resentment came pouring out. "Support? Where was your support when I was trying to study for college and Sarah was making my life hell? Where was your support when you cut me off financially because you were too busy catering to Sarah's every whim? I've spent my entire life trying to understand and make allowances for Sarah. And I'm done. I'm done being the responsible one, the one who always has to sacrifice. You raised her to be this way, and now you can deal with the consequences." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. Then Dad spoke, his voice cold. "If that's how you feel, maybe it's best we don't speak for a while. And don't be surprised if the rest of the family feels the same way once they hear about this." I laughed bitterly. "Is that supposed to be a threat? Go ahead. Tell them whatever version of the story makes you feel better about your parenting failures." I hung up. True to my parents' word, the calls started coming in. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all of them expressing their shock and disappointment in my cruel treatment of Sarah. "How could you abandon your sister in her time of need?" my Aunt Linda scolded. "I always knew you were jealous of Sarah, but this is a new low," cousin Mike messaged me. I tried explaining the truth to the first few, but it quickly became clear that their minds were made up. Sarah and my parents had spun a tale of my jealousy and cruelty, and the family had lapped it up. The final straw came when I logged onto Facebook. There, in black and white, was a post from Sarah. Heartbroken. My own sister threw me out when I needed her most. I guess blood isn't always thicker than water. Family drama betrayed. The comments were a cesspool of family members and old acquaintances expressing their sympathy for Sarah and their disgust with me. My finger hovered over the keyboard. I could respond, tell my side of the story. But what was the point? They'd already made up their minds. With a heavy heart, I began blocking numbers and unfriending relatives on social media. It hurt, cutting ties with people I'd known my whole life. But as I looked over at Tom, who had stayed by my side through all of this, I knew I was making the right choice. In the weeks that followed the fallout with my family, I felt like I was walking through a fog. The pain of being ostracized by my own relatives was raw and ever-present. But amidst the darkness, there was one beacon of light: my grandmother. "Meryl, dear," she said during one of our weekly phone calls, "I want you to know that I believe you. I know Sarah, and I know you. You did the right thing." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Thanks, Grandma. You don't know how much that means to me." She chuckled softly. "Oh, I think I do. Now tell me about your week. How's that wonderful husband of yours?" And just like that, life went on. Tom and I settled into a peaceful routine, free from the drama that had plagued us for so long. We traveled, pursued our careers, and even started talking about starting a family of our own. Months passed, then a year. I heard snippets about my family through the grapevine. Sarah had moved back in with our parents, apparently unable to support herself after the divorce. But I pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on my own life. Then, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. It was a number I hadn't seen in over a year: my parents. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello." "Meryl," it was my mother, her voice choked with tears. "Meryl, we need your help." A familiar weight settled in my stomach. "What's wrong?" Between sobs, she explained. Sarah had spiraled out of control. She was bringing strange men home, throwing wild parties, and had even physically threatened our parents when they tried to intervene. "She kicked us out." Meryl Dad's voice came on the line. "We're staying at a motel. We don't know what to do. Can you come talk to her? Maybe she'll listen to you?" I closed my eyes, feeling a mix of emotions wash over me: anger, pity, frustration, but mostly I felt nothing. "No," I said quietly. "I can't." "But Meryl," Mom started. I cut her off. "No, Mom, I'm done. I've spent my entire life cleaning up Sarah's messes, making excuses for her behavior, and when I finally stood up for myself, you all turned your backs on me. This is your problem now. You raised her, you enabled her. Now you have to deal with the consequences." Before they could respond, I hung up. Then, with a sense of finality, I blocked their numbers. Tom found me on the couch a little while later, staring into space. "Everything okay?" he asked, concern in his voice. I looked up at him and smiled. Really smiled. "You know what? It is. For the first time in my life, I think everything is actually okay." As we sat there, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Yes, I had lost the family I was born into. But I had gained so much more. I had Tom, my rock and my partner. I had my grandmother, who loved me unconditionally. And most importantly, I had myself stronger and more self-assured than ever before. The next day, I called my grandmother. "Hey, Grandma, how would you like to come visit for a while? Tom and I were thinking of redecorating the guest room, and we could use your expert eye." Her joy was palpable through the phone. "Oh, Meryl, I'd love to. When should I come?" As I hung up, making plans for my grandmother's visit, I realized something. This was what family should be. People who support you, love you, and bring joy to your life.
It seems my number was skipped. What? You keep complaining. So you're at the end of the line. We have to prioritize the quiet and patient customers, don't we? However, no matter how long I waited, my number was never called. In the end, I was made to wait for 5 hours. To top it off, they told me the counter was closed. Finally, I lost my temper. "Hey, you haven't finished my transaction," I said, slamming my passbook on the counter. "Oh right, I forgot about the complaining old man," he said with a smirk. "I'm withdrawing $390 million from my business account. Handle it immediately. I've been waiting for 5 hours. 5 hours? You must have a lot of free time, old man. And $390 million, big talk, old man." While saying this, he checked the passbook. Then, the next moment, he burst out laughing and said with a grin, "Your small-time business has a balance of $30. Where's this $390 million you're talking about? What are you looking at? I can't deal with you anymore. Bring me the bank president." My name is Steve Miller. I'm 60 years old. After graduating from college, I got a regular job at a company, but being a salaryman didn't suit me, so I quickly quit and started my own business. Fortunately, the company is stable, and although I've stepped down as president, I'm still actively working as chairman. However, lately, I've been thinking about retiring and spending my remaining years doing what I love. That said, I've pretty much done what I like throughout my life. I got married and was blessed with 2 sons. Both sons are now adults with families of their own. I've been lucky to see the faces of my 4 grandchildren. Grandchildren are incredibly adorable, especially my first grandchild, who is 5 years old, is good at talking now and tells me all about things happening in kindergarten and his favorite foods. The time spent with my grandchildren is very precious. My wife, who has been with me for 34 years, and I still get along well. And now that we've finished raising our kids, we enjoy going on hot spring trips together whenever we find the time. I've always preferred simplicity over anything flashy, so my clothing tends to be plain and modest. I do dress sharply in a suit for work, but my wife often says there's too much of a gap between my work mode and my usual self. But isn't that just how it goes? Wearing stiff clothes all the time is tiring. One peaceful day, my 5-year-old grandson asked me to take him to a sushi restaurant. The sushi place is in the area where my eldest son's family lives. It's a small spot with only counter seats, but the taste is top-notch. I'm also a regular there. We sat at the back of the counter. My grandson loves sushi, but being so young, his favorites are simple items like omelette and steamed shrimp. While ordering these for him, a man dressed sharply in a suit and a woman who seemed to be his girlfriend entered the restaurant. The chef's hearty "welcome" echoed through the place. The couple sat in the middle seats. "Hey, David, you're with your girlfriend today?" "Yeah, it's her birthday. I'll leave it to you. Make something fresh and special for us," said David, who also seemed to be a regular. I hadn't met him before. While preparing the omelette sushi my grandson ordered, the chef responded with a cheerful "sure" and placed 2 pieces of omelette sushi in front of my grandson. My grandson exclaimed, "Wow," and eagerly bit into the omelette sushi. Next, the chef made the steamed shrimp and placed it in front of my grandson again, when David snapped at the chef. "Hey, chef, where's our sushi? Make ours before you make sushi for a kid who can't even appreciate it." What a selfish thing to say, and saying a kid can't appreciate sushi is just rude. I was quietly seething inside. Even so, this customer ordered first. "Please wait a moment," the chef replied sensibly. Then David's girlfriend chimed in loudly, "David, I'm hungry." It seemed she agreed with him and wasn't going to stop him. She's hungry too. Forget about those poor customers and prioritize our order. I graduated top of my class from an elite university and work at a major bank. I'm well paid and part of the upper class. Plus, my bank finances this restaurant. Show some hospitality. If you disregard us, I can cut off your funding anytime. What a show-off this young man is. I was laughing internally. But seeing the chef in a bind, I said, "It's fine to serve our sushi later. Feed that hungry couple first." Then David turned his eye towards me. "Hey, old man over there. Calling us a hungry couple is rude. Do you know who I am? I'm a bank employee. I'm the one who approves your loans. Watch your mouth, but I guess a poor guy like you wouldn't even pass a loan review, right? It's quite something to call a stranger poor. However, I can't argue and fight in front of my grandson. So I bit my tongue." The chef then swiftly prepared sushi for the couple, leaving them with no room for complaints, and quickly settled their bill. After they left, peace returned to the restaurant. The chef, as a gesture of apology, prepared 2 special items for me, and also served my grandson his favorite omelette and steamed shrimp. The chef had done nothing wrong, so there was no need for an apology from him. We commiserated over dealing with rude customers. That guy is an employee of the bank that loaned us money for the restaurant expansion. He started coming here frequently since then and always demands priority. I see. I thought he was an old regular. No, he's not. He's a nuisance to other customers. Honestly, I wish he wouldn't come at all. The chef's true feelings slipped out. Despite the commotion, my grandson enjoyed his favorite sushi and was delighted, which was a relief. About a week later, I had to visit the first branch of Akasha Bank. I intended to deposit the New Year's gift money I kept from my grandson into his account. While I was at it, I planned to inquire about opening a new corporate fixed deposit account. Since it didn't feel like a work-related errand, I did wear a suit and dressed casually. Usually, I use the main branch, but since I was staying at my eldest son's house, I decided to go to the first branch nearby. Even though it's a different branch, the account services should be the same, so I thought I'd ask when I had the time. Akasha Bank is known for its kind and attentive service. However, the moment I stepped into the first branch, I felt a strange unease. There was nothing specifically different, but the atmosphere felt unpleasant. I quickly realized the reason for my discomfort. As the automatic door opened, I locked eyes with the bank teller, and his gaze was cold. Moreover, it was a familiar face. It was David, the arrogant guy from the sushi restaurant. The placard on the counter confirmed it, David Williams. So he works at this bank. Remembering David's attitude at the sushi place, I felt a wave of disappointment. I had assumed that all the employees at Akasha Bank were wonderful people. However, David's face was void of any smile, and he wore a constant scowl while dealing with customers. No wonder the atmosphere felt off. Still, since I had come all the way, I took a number and decided to wait. But no matter how long I waited, my turn didn't come. With nothing else to do, I observed the inside of the branch. The first branch didn't seem very large, and there were only a few service counters. Moreover, today, David was the only teller handling customers. There was another employee who seemed to be a teller, but they were dealing with a customer at the back counter, likely a significant client. Additionally, 3 female employees were inside the counter area, but they didn't seem to handle customer service. Still, my number wasn't called. It might be understandable that the service is slow with just one person handling everything. Thinking this, I decided to wait patiently. I killed time by checking economic news on my phone, but it was still too much idle time. I kept waiting, and finally, the number right before mine was called. Oh, finally, my turn is next. But just as I thought that, the next number called was after mine. A young woman sitting next to me stood up and headed to the counter. What? I couldn't help but let out a sound. Usually I'm a patient person, but I had to check this time. Excuse me, it seems my number was skipped. Oh, the order can change depending on the procedure. Just keep waiting, old man. Calling a customer, old man. Now that I think about it, he called me old man. At the sushi place too. His rude language made me irritated. And to make matters worse, David responded while looking down and working, not even glancing my way. Indeed, the order can sometimes change based on the procedure. That's possible. But what was with that tone? I couldn't shake off the irritation. Yet, there was no other employee who seemed available to help, so I had no choice but to wait. After a while, I really needed to use the restroom, so I stepped away from the counter for a bit. When I returned, more numbers had been called than I expected. I wondered if my number had been called while I was away, so I went back to the counter to check. Excuse me, my number. Before I could finish, David answered. You're annoying, old man. We haven't called you at all. Just wait quietly. I was stunned. I couldn't believe such a response was acceptable. It was incredibly rude. As I continued to wait, I noticed something. An elderly person who was already here when I arrived was still sitting and waiting. However, younger people seemed to be called much quicker. It appeared they were prioritizing younger customers over the elderly. My irritation from earlier only grew, and I went back to David to demand an explanation. Excuse me, is the numbering system not working? It seems like the elderly are being served much slower. What? It's you again. Old folks like you have plenty of time, so you can wait. Young people come here during their work breaks. They're busy, unlike you old folks. Got it? Now go wait over there. You're bothering the other customers. David said this dismissively, clearly annoyed. Even so, elderly people can be busy too. Besides, everyone has been waiting quite a long time. Could you please serve us in order? I spoke as calmly as possible, trying not to show my anger. However, David responded, You're annoying, old man. If you don't want to wait, you can leave. Your transaction amount is probably tiny anyway. You could use the ATM, but you come here because you don't know how to use it, which makes more work for us. Since you're bothering us with small amounts, just wait quietly. Wait, weren't you that poor guy at the sushi restaurant the other day? Are you here for a loan? We can't give you a loan. Anyway, it's still not your turn, so just wait. I let out a deep sigh. David not only treated customers rudely, but also discriminated based on their perceived status. I was furious with his arrogant attitude. Though it's true that I often rely on tellers at the main branch because I don't fully understand how to use the ATM. Am I causing trouble by doing that? I sat down in the waiting area again, deciding to wait. I marveled at my own patience for waiting despite being treated this way. Maybe it was partly out of stubbornness. Finally, as the closing time for the counter approached, customers of my generation started being called. However, my number was skipped again. I went back to David at the counter once more. It seems my number was skipped. What? You're so annoying. You keep complaining, so you're at the end of the line. We have to prioritize the quiet and patient customers, right? Isn't that right, folks? David said this, seeking agreement from the elderly waiting in the seats. The men and women of my generation, who had been waiting for a long time, gave wry smiles. Indeed, they have been waiting quite a while too. I decided to stop arguing and sat back down in the waiting area. However, no matter how long I waited, my number was never called. In the end, I was made to wait for 5 hours. To top it off, they announced that the counter was closing. I finally lost my patience. I decided to act on the thoughts I'd been having for a while. I stopped David as he was about to leave the counter and said, "Excuse me, you haven't finished my transaction?" I said, slamming my passbook on the counter. "Oh, right. I forgot about the complaining old man," David said with an obviously fake forgetfulness. "I'm withdrawing $390 million from my corporate account. Handle it immediately. I've been waiting for 5 hours." 5 hours? You must have a lot of free time, old man, and $390 million. That's a big talk, old man, David said while checking the passbook. Then, the next moment, he burst out laughing and said with a grin, "This small-time business has a balance of $30. Where's this $390 million you're talking about? I can't find it anywhere." "What are you looking at?" I said. "My corporate account." "That passbook is my grandson's savings account. I can't deal with you anymore. Bring the bank president here." "You're the one who handed me this passbook, old man," David retorted. "I came here today because my grandson asked me to deposit his New Year's gift money and to discuss the fixed deposit for my corporate account." "Oh, I see." "No need to brag. You don't have $390 million anyway. You want me to call the president. Who do you think you are? The president is too busy to deal with someone like you." David continued mocking me with a sneer. "Enough is enough. Just call the president. Tell him Steve is asking for him, and he will come right away." "Yeah, right, old man," David said as he walked to the back. He was probably going to talk to the branch manager. From the back room, the branch manager appeared with a puzzled look on his face. I could easily guess how David had explained the situation. When David pointed at me and the branch manager recognized my face, he became visibly flustered. Ignoring David, who was still trying to explain something, the manager rushed straight over to me. "Mr. Miller, I deeply apologize for my subordinate's rudeness." "Oh, Mr. Johnson, I hadn't seen you at the main branch lately, and now I see you've become the branch manager here. Congratulations on your promotion. It's been a while." "Thank you for all your help at the main branch. I apologize for not greeting you sooner, please. Come to the back room." The branch manager, knowing the storm that was about to unfold, tried to guide me to a separate room. Since I was the last customer, there was no one else in the bank. I thought there was no need to go to another room. "Mr. Johnson, I think this is a bit beyond you. Call the bank president. I've been asking that teller to do so, but he's been ignoring me." When I looked at David, he stood there with a sullen expression. "I am truly sorry." The branch manager repeatedly apologized. David just stood there with his mouth open, staring. The other tellers also stopped their work and watched the situation unfold. "I will handle this matter with the utmost sincerity, so please, let's not involve the president." The branch manager, worried about his own position, hesitated to contact the president. Seeing this getting nowhere, I decided to call the president myself. "Hello, Mr. Brown. Sorry to bother you, but could you come to the first branch of Akasha Bank? I need to close a $390 million corporate account." Even though I wasn't on speakerphone, Mr. Brown's loud exclamation of "What?" echoed throughout the bank. I turned to the branch manager and said, "Mr. Brown is nearby and will be here shortly." The branch manager slumped his shoulders in defeat. "Old man, how do you even have the president's contact info? Are you just pretending to call him to act superior to us?" "Branch manager, don't worry. The president isn't coming." "Who said I wasn't coming?" "What? He's here." Mr. Brown entered the bank with a furious expression. "Chairman Steve, what is this sudden talk about closing your account?" I was appalled by the service from this teller, David. After making me wait endlessly, he tried to close the counter without assisting me. I waited for 5 hours. His attitude is unacceptable, and his language is disrespectful. As much as I appreciate all you've done for me, Mr. Brown, I can't keep my assets in a bank that employs such people. I'm sorry, but I need to close my corporate account. Chairman Steve, I deeply apologize for the rudeness of our employee. I'm truly sorry, please. Just this once. Reconsider, David. Apologize. How could you behave so poorly to such an important customer? What David said next left me stunned. Well, this person has been a frequent complainer and was bothering other customers. He pointed at me as he said this. I was speechless at David's audacity to blame a customer who had patiently waited. Then, one of David's colleagues, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. No, Chairman Steve didn't complain at all. He only asked why his number was skipped. I was busy assisting other customers and couldn't help. I'm very sorry. Mike, don't say unnecessary things. You're making me look bad. David, your behavior today has been unacceptable. You always change your attitude based on the customer. I don't think that's right. Don't lecture me, you third-rate college grad. David and Mike began arguing, and the branch manager had to step in to stop them. David, have you been consistently prioritizing customers based on your preferences? That's right. When the manager isn't here, it's always like this. Usually I step in to prevent customer complaints, but I couldn't today, and I'm deeply sorry. There's no need for you to apologize. You've been doing your job well. What do you mean, acting all high and mighty? David's arrogant behavior towards the customers was now exposed to both the branch manager and the president, and he turned away sulking. The branch manager, Johnson, had only been assigned to this first branch 6 months ago. He trusted David and Mike, who had been working here longer, to handle the work. David was known for his ability to impress his superiors and was seen as a polite and capable employee. However, to his colleagues and juniors, he was arrogant, flaunting his elite university background and constantly looking down on them. The president and branch manager were shocked to learn David's true nature. Chairman Steve is one of our most valuable clients. He's the famous chairman of the Hamayara Group. He's also been very successful in stock trading, with a total asset of over $1 billion. It's no exaggeration to say that Chairman Steve's support is vital to Akasha Bank. Normally, I wouldn't even be worthy of his company. But because of his character, we are also golf buddies. How could you treat such an important customer and friend of mine so poorly? If Chairman Steve closes his account, it would be a huge loss for our bank. David's face turned visibly worried. What, this old man? No way. Watch your mouth. But David seemed to have some nerve. But it's his fault. If he's the chairman of a corporate group, he should dress like one. If he comes dressed so shabbily, of course, I'll just think he's some old man. Someone like me, an elite, should dress the part. So you judge people by their appearance. That's my style. But it's shameful to change your attitude based on how someone looks. David, how can you talk to Chairman Steve like that? You're a disgrace to this bank. If Chairman Steve closes his account, you're definitely fired. When David heard the word fired from the president, his attitude changed completely. What? No. That can't happen. I dream of becoming the president someday. Oh, I mean, Chairman Steve, I'm terribly sorry. Please don't close your account. I swear this won't happen again, please. David, was it? I don't believe you're truly remorseful. I can't keep my company's assets in a bank with such employees. I will close the $390 million corporate account and move it to another bank. This is final. Please proceed with the account closure. The president and branch manager slumped in defeat, looking dazed. David, realizing the gravity of the situation, started looking nervously between the president and the branch manager. I understand. So you're closing the account. However, preparing $390 million immediately is impossible. We'll contact you as soon as it's ready. Please bear with us. Understand. I will await your call. A while later, I received a call from President Brown, informing me that the $390 million was ready. I went to the main branch of Akasha Bank. Chairman Steve, I deeply apologize for the rudeness of our employee. The $390 million from your corporate account has been transferred to the designated bank, and the account closure process is complete. The president looked visibly pale, and his voice lacked its usual energy. Normally, he's quite cheerful, but now he seemed overwhelmed by the loss. I see, thank you. What happened to David? Actually, David insisted on personally apologizing to you today, so he is here at the main branch. Could you possibly give him a chance to apologize? I see. If he made the effort to come here, it would be rude not to meet him. Please let him in. Thank you. When the branch manager Johnson, standing next to the president, opened the back door, David and a woman followed him into the room. I deeply apologize for my rudeness to you, Chairman Steve, and for causing such significant damage to Akasha Bank. I am truly sorry. The woman standing a step behind David also slumped down simultaneously. Today, David seemed genuinely remorseful, but I was more intrigued by the woman with him. I understand. I hope for better behavior from you in the future, David. By the way, who is this lady? Oh, I apologize for not introducing her earlier. This is my daughter. Actually, David is my son-in-law. Chairman Steve, I am truly sorry for what happened. My daughter insisted on apologizing alongside him. Oh, I see. I was surprised and compared the woman at the sushi restaurant with this woman before me in my mind. However, they seemed entirely different. The president's daughter had an air of refinement, with delicate features and a modest amount of makeup, giving a clean and pure impression. The woman with David at the sushi restaurant wore flashy clothes and heavy makeup. Their facial features were also different. I decided to ask the president's daughter directly. Excuse me, but didn't we meet at the sushi restaurant the other day? I was there with my grandson. It was your birthday, wasn't it? The president's daughter tilted her head, clearly having no idea what I was talking about. Then David, looking flustered, jumped in. Oh, well, that was. He gestured for me to zip my mouth. So the woman he brought to the sushi restaurant wasn't his wife. I was now certain. David, I called out. Yes, he responded, almost jumping. What is the meaning of this? Well, the president's daughter said she hadn't been to a sushi restaurant recently and that her birthday was still far off. David was dragged out of the room by his ear by the president's daughter. Actually, since David is my son-in-law, I've been struggling with how to handle this. I knew his misconduct warranted dismissal, but firing him would also leave my daughter in a difficult situation. As a parent, I feel for her. I even suggested she divorce him, but she couldn't make up her mind. I, as parent, wondered what she saw in him, but perhaps now she will finally make a decision. Thank you, Chairman Steve. Well, it seems that bad deeds don't go unpunished, do they? After that day, David was thoroughly questioned by the president's daughter, but managed to talk his way out and smooth things over temporarily. However, the president hired a private investigator to look into David's background. As a result, numerous affairs were uncovered. The president's daughter was furious. She lost all affection for David and divorced him, leaving him to pay a large sum in alimony. With the divorce settled, the president had no hesitation in firing David for his poor customer service, lack of remorse, and the significant loss he caused the bank. David lost his job and incurred a large debt to cover the alimony. He tried to rely on his affair partners, but they were only interested in his money, and once he was in debt, they had no use for him. He was swiftly abandoned by them all. The news of the substantial loss he caused Akasha Bank spread quickly to other banks, making it impossible for him to find another job in banking. He did manage to find a job at a small company in a different field. However, his arrogant attitude, flaunting his elite university background, remained unchanged, leading to his alienation from other employees. Feeling dissatisfied, he eventually quit. Focusing only on past glories without working hard in the present means he will never find happiness. One holiday, when I took my grandson to the park, I saw a man sitting on a bench, hunched over, begging passers-by for food. "Do you have any food?" A passing couple gave him something. "Thank you." Even though he was wearing dirty clothes and his hair was disheveled, I recognized David immediately. If he had been able to say thank you like that when he was a teller, his life might have turned out differently. I thought, but it was a fitting end for someone who brought it upon himself. As for me, the Hamayara Group is doing great. Our performance improves every quarter. Work has become more enjoyable, and I'm starting to reconsider my decision to step down as chairman. My wife is exasperated with me, though, and about my casual clothes that David called shabby. It bothered me, so I asked my wife, "Do my everyday clothes really look that shabby?" Someone said something the other day, and it hurt my feelings. She chuckled and reassured me, "Not at all." I felt a bit relieved. Under President Brown's leadership, Akasha Bank has been steadily improving its services and regaining customers, gradually recovering the $390 million loss. That's President Brown. This project is being led by Branch Manager Johnson at the first branch. He is a skilled banker and will surely lead it to success. I had a recent errand at the first branch of Akasha Bank, and as soon as the automatic doors opened, I was greeted with a cheerful welcome. The atmosphere was very bright and pleasant. The grim and unpleasant atmosphere from David's time was nowhere to be found. Thanks to Mike's courteous service, my transaction went smoothly. President Brown and I still keep in touch as golf buddies, just as before. Even though I moved my corporate account to another bank after the recent incident, I am considering opening a new personal fixed deposit account at Akasha Bank. In fact, the stock I recently purchased has risen in price, yielding a significant dividend. Before putting it into a fixed deposit, I decided to take my grandson out for some sushi. My grandson still prefers just omelette and steamed shrimp sushi. As for me, I think I'll enjoy some seasonal fish. Good evening. Hey, welcome.